grateful that we can finally reconnect and get back on a training today. So let's catch up. So what is one win you've experienced since we last met, and then what is one challenge you're dealing with right now? And I'm just going to open it up. Whoever wants to go first, and we can take a minute to even just think about the last month or two or last few weeks of a win and a challenge.
I'll go first.
Thanks, Lori.
Well, we've had really, just a lot of win overall, just in our improved communication with the doctors and the staff in general. We're just really transitioning with a new dental partner into the practice that joined in January. So, just integrating somebody else and their team into our existing practice. So really working on increasing our communication, resolving confusion, I guess, maybe, or confusing and unmet expectation, maybe, and just trying to spend we're not as busy as we were when she first joined. We've kind of had a lull, so trying to change that from a negative into a positive by using it for training, using it for increased communication, using it for some improving some things that we've had to let go because we've been so skeleton staffed for so long. So just trying to, turn negatives into positives by just kind of changing your lens and flipping the script in your head, that this doesn't have to be a bad thing. We could view this as a good thing. And so I think that's really helps, attitudes and just helping us be better in the future. So, but one of our challenges is production for this new doctor. So we just had a staff meeting over lunch and trying to work on some ideas for that. And we also are bringing on an additional staff member that will be able to, she's a great talent, and I'm so glad that she's going to be joining us. And she has a relationship with Doctor from over 20 years ago, where her and our assistant worked together in another practice. And she's been a patient in our office for a long time, so we know her. And she's just going to be a great asset. But one of the things she'll help us with is marketing. And she has clinical skills as well as front office and training and lots of lots. She brings a lot to the table. So I'm super excited about that. But so our challenge is production. So we are going to just be more mindful and just really trying to spread the exams around. We have a patient base that's extremely loyal to our senior doctors. So we want to guide them to be open to seeing the new doctor, but still give them freedom of choice and feel like they have a voice, that they're not being manipulated or whatever. So, it's such a fine line, but anyway, we're having a great day today. So we're looking forward to the changes. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for
Good
sharing.
For you, Lori. We're proud of you. Yeah.
Yeah, we know that's taken a lot of effort on many fronts to get to that point. So we're happy for y'all. Great. Who else would like, who would like to go next?
I can.
Great. Thanks, Tammy.
Our wins, we've hired some employees in the back office and the front office, and they're all doing really good. So it's been helping with our staff shortage. I think our biggest challenge right now is getting all of our computers, everything updated to start e-filing again. It's been quite a challenge in getting that done, but we're nearing the end, so.
Great.
Yeah, that's really impacted you, that Change Healthcare clearinghouse issue.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brighton, are you getting feedback? Okay, it's gone now.
I am a little bit. I know Jen and
Yeah.
Kathleen are trying to figure out their
Mhm.
camera mic stuff. So
Right.
I think we got it figured out.
Yes, we're good.
Fantastic.
Great.
You
See everybody. We could see the screen. We're good.
okay, great. Do you guys want to share? Everyone else is gone, so do you want to share one win since we last met and one challenge you're facing now?
Ooh. Um, well, we've had a lot going on. We've had some big changes in the last like 4 to 8 weeks in our office. Overcoming lots of obstacles and lots of challenges. So with change comes new responsibilities, everybody kind of jumping on board. So we've had a few hiccups scheduling, getting everybody on the same page. So we had a very positive meeting last week with assistants and office staff of, just moving forward and kind of getting rid of these hiccups. So that was a positive. And then we just got kind of thrown a new challenge. Our third-party billing company is no longer going to be in business. And so we have a few weeks to figure that out. So that's a new challenge that's on the plate for now. So we're getting ready to have a big meeting about that. But we keep putting out the fires, so we're doing good. Hanging in there.
Yeah, you all are definitely in that
Storming
kind of
phase?
storming phase. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
All. Yeah, you've just got a lot of
Mhm.
stuff you're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Our scheduling template alone, like in the last 2 months, has changed probably like 3 times. So it's still like the scheduling with now that we've merged the 2 offices, the Special Smiles and the other office, it's been challenging. So basically running 2 different offices, but like within one schedule. So it's been really good.
Mm.
Yeah, interesting. What is the one win you've experienced since last time, Jen?
I'm trying to think.
Taking control to
Well,
do some training.
but yeah, just recently we had a big assistant meeting. I felt like I was doing a good job in delegating when I really wasn't. I was taking a lot on my plate, thinking I was helping as a lead assistant, was taking a lot of responsibility off of everybody else. But then that made my stress level go up, which then made me very crabby and just very stressed. And my mood and attitude was not very positive because I was so stressed. So when I thought I was helping everybody out by taking everything on, I was kind of making it worse because then I was not a happy person and not like someone that they felt they could approach. So yeah, we are going to change some stuff around, do more delegating.
Right.
As far as like lab tracking, ordering, all the 3D printing that we do. So yeah, we'll have some training going on next week with all of that.
Cool.
So
Great. Well, today's training is going to be perfect for that. So what a great transition. Before we jump into specifically what we're going to be talking about today, though, we do want to just take a moment and look back at where we started, because it's been a few months, and review the first lesson and then the second lesson. So leadership mindset was our very first one. Now we met, we talked, we got to know each other. What is one thing that you remember when it comes to that leadership mindset and vision? And we talked a lot about creating a vision and stuff like that. Is there anything that we can look back at and remember to just make sure that those lessons are not lost?
That we solve and not blame.
Great.
Love it. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think that was part of lesson 2, but still very, very good. Very, very good. Yeah, anything else that we can look back at from the first 2 lessons of things that we've learned? And it doesn't have to be lesson 1 or lesson 2, just specifically like things that we've discussed and trained and talked about. Any highlights that you can remember?
Well, one of the tools that I've used is come alongside, other coworkers and how may I help you? Blah, blah, that, it just really is a great way to start the sit down conversation that takes away people being defensive and, that kind of thing. So it really creates the open door for some really constructive conversation is what I found. So that has been a good tool for me.
Yeah, that's
That's great,
fantastic,
Lori.
Lori.
I love it.
Yeah, that's that whole mindset of shifting from our team members are there to serve us, and we flip that
Right.
to where we're there to serve them, right? And
Right.
that's a leader's mindset. So I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Being able to be trusted by your coworkers, and trust was a big thing. And just making sure expectations are clarified.
Yep.
So
Yep.
everybody knows, what to expect
Mm-hmm.
from the little things to the big things.
Yeah, exactly. I had a good friend of mine tell me that 9/10 of conflict in business comes from unclear roles, goals, and expectations.
Mhm.
And I think that may be a little on the high side, but I think it's pretty close.
I think it's very close.
Yeah. Yep. Well, great.
Thank you. Hey, any last thoughts? If not, we'll go ahead and move on. Okay. I remember the last time we met, we talked about this crossing the line exercise is what we refer to it as, but we challenged those limiting beliefs. We really discussed those limiting beliefs we have as leaders, that I have to solve everything. Anyways, I remember that last time was a really impactful exercise for everyone, and just looking at ourselves and saying, oh, we might have some of these limiting beliefs, and sometimes they do help us and serve us, but we're trying to challenge those. So as always, the expectations and goals for today is to be totally present, which you all ladies are fantastic at. This is not a lecture discussion. Please ask questions, participate, and the more you put in, the more you'll get out. So let's jump in. The first time we met, we talked about this exercise of good versus bad leaders. If you remember, we had everyone write down, describe for me bad leaders, and then we also had write down good leaders. Specifically, I'd love to ask, what do you think bad leaders create a blank culture? How would you fill that in? What answer would you provide?
Negative
Negative.
Okay, great. What else?
or hostile. Yeah.
Hostile. Yeah. Negative,
Mhm.
hostile.
Mm-hmm.
Toxic came to mind.
Toxic.
Chaotic.
What was that one? Sorry, Kathleen.
Chaotic.
Chaotic. Great. The one that we specifically thought of was a fear-driven culture. And I think all those things you talked about are also very true. Bad leaders create toxic, chaotic, unhealthy cultures. And a lot of those things also can be driven back to like a fear-driven type culture. If we were to flip that and say good leaders build a foundation of blank, how would you fill that in?
Trust.
Trust. That's the answer we said.
Yeah.
Well done.
That was
Yeah,
chapter 1,
encouragement
Bob. I
too.
listened to it all
Yeah.
the way to goes.
Perfect. The good leaders build a foundation of trust. And I know this is something we've hit on and we'll keep hitting on, because going back to what Bob said just a few minutes ago, so much of being a leader and creating an environment of healthy conflict and all those things really has to stem from that foundation of trust, and both our ability to be trusted and our ability to give trust. It goes both ways. So if we learn from Bob's model, upside down leadership, the foundation there across the bottom is trust. We have to have trust first, really, really, really established before we can build upon it and start to create these feedback loops and this culture of expectations, participation, appreciation, all those things. And so we're going to be discussing that a little bit. And then we'll work through some exercises towards the end of our training today. Okay. So if trust is the foundation, we like to say trust is the currency in which we build all relationships. And I think we may have we discussed the trust bank account or like the emotional bank account? Have we talked about that before? No, I didn't. Okay. So Stephen Covey has this part in his book where he talks about this trust bank account. And we have this bank account or relationship with everyone in our lives, including ourselves. And we are either depositing into that relationship with continually to building and depositing into that trust, or we're withdrawing from it. So let me give you an example. As Bob and I are business partners, if I were to do something, say I make a commitment to Bob, hey, I'll get you over this thing by the end of the day, and I don't get it to him, and I totally ghost him, and I forget it, I am withdrawing from my trust bank account with Bob. That withdrawal, I'm going to have to now go back in, and I'm negative in my account with him, and I'm going to have to put more deposits in order to earn back that trust. Now, obviously, Bob is great, so he chooses to forgive me and all that stuff. But that same type of lesson applies to those that we lead in our teams. So anytime that we do something, whether it's creating a trauma triangle, or we don't keep a commitment, or we forget to follow up, or whatever it is, okay, any number of circumstances, you're either withdrawing or depositing into that bank account. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
It's one of the simplest concepts in the whole world, and it's also one of the most profound.
Yeah.
And why it
now,
matters so much is, if I can just say this, Bright, that trust is really the foundation of all human relationships. And in a high level, a high trust environment, you can perform magic. In a low trust, that fear-driven environment, it's always like you're walking in the dark.
Yeah. Now, that trust account does exist with every single person. We have to be making deposits into every single person in order to make sure that we maintain that trust. It's really, really important. So we are going to do an exercise later on in the training today that will help you actually start to gauge where are you at in those accounts with each of your team members, and thinking of who do I need to be making more deposits in, and maybe who's making withdrawals from me. So we'll get into that in just a little bit, but yeah, any last, does anybody have any questions or thoughts or anything on this concept of a trust bank account? Okay. Now, I do think some people are naturally more skeptical, and you almost start in a negative account balance with some people, where it's like you got to make deposits before they'll ever trust you, and then some people are super, super trusting, and it's easier to mean. Anyways, every relationship's unique and different, so, and every personality approaches it differently. Now, if trust is the foundation, and we want to make sure we're maintaining this trust, we want to make sure we're embodying the characteristics that create trust. And so we really broke it down into these two key characteristics: trust, credibility, and integrity. So credibility, currency you hold as a leader is your credibility. Okay. So what does credibility mean to you?
Following through on things.
Following through on things. Great.
Honesty and integrity.
Yeah.
Being approachable as a leader, you know, we just talked about that, like being
Mm.
available and open to suggestions. Listening,
Yeah.
being a good listener.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all those things can help you build credibility. I think you also have to have some competency to actually be able to do the job, or even admit when you don't know how to do a job. Both of those are opportunities to earn credibility. So why do you think it's important?
To build the trust. You need that to build the trust. You say you're gonna do something, follow through, and then that leads people in the future to trust that you can make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Credibility is what we found is the motivation behind others following you. You'll follow a credible leader practically anywhere if you know that they are also invested in you and in your growth. But an uncredible leader, it just ends up being a really strained relationship. And you may stay in that for other reasons, but it doesn't inspire hearts. Like Covey said, you can buy a person's back, but you can't buy their heart. They give it to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you think of, if, in your practices, each one of you have been working in dentistry for so long, and that builds your credibility. It builds saying, like, I've been there, I've done that, I've experienced this, and it allows you to put yourself in a state of authority a little bit, of knowing, having been in the shoes of those that you're leading. Oftentimes you've solved all those problems, most likely, or experienced those different problems. And so all those things give you credibility. Whereas if I were to swap you out for someone that's never been in dental and hasn't solved the same problems, how much credibility do you think they would have?
None.
None, right? They would have a much, much harder way of earning trust. They would have to be extremely humble and just a really great at asking questions and communicating and all those things. But having this credibility and that competency in order to be able to actually do the job goes a long way. So if we know what it means and why it's important, how do we start to gain credibility? What are your thoughts?
I think it's like Jen said, by following through. And, you know, if you have staff coming to you with an issue, then you need to listen and solve and follow through. So they know they can trust you and you're come to you with an issue and that you're going to do your best to figure it out and solve the problem.
Yeah. I think just as important as following through, Kathleen, is also being able to communicate it,
Yes.
right? I'm sure all of us are guilty, and now I am, of someone asking me for something and I just go, I get it done. I do this all the time with my wife, where she's like, hey, will you book this thing or whatever. And I just go and do it, but I forget to close the loop with her. So this open tab is still there. I'm like, hey, like, did this ever get done? Even though I may have got it done a week ago, the fact that I didn't communicate it, I didn't close the loop with her, it just loses that credibility and that trust. So I think, as well as, following up and getting stuff done, we have to close the loop and make sure we communicate. So if somebody asks, hey, I need to get time off for X, and you're like, okay, great, I'll go check the schedule and make sure, and you go check it, but you forget to communicate with them. They're obviously the loop isn't closed on their end. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on how we gain credibility? Thank you, Kathleen. That was great.
I think you gain credibility by hearing with that you're validating what they're saying. Whether, you know, feelings aren't right or wrong, they just are. Validating feelings, validating their perspective, and that you're actually hearing them. I think that lays a good foundation for credibility.
Absolutely. Great. Bob, any thoughts?
I think everybody's nailed it. It's following through, it's communicating, it's closing that loop, it's listening, it's validating, it's keeping promises. And if you have to violate a promise, you got to ask the person who you made the promise to. One of the things that can damage credibility fastest for a leader also is gossip. Speaking about others, you know, and maybe even doing it in a way that you think you're safe. But anytime we start to, you know, engage in something that appears we're breaking confidences, or that we're talking about something that shouldn't be discussed, that all starts to erode our credibility. Favoritism is also another form of hurting credibility itself. Not playing favorites is how you create credibility. Because again, we're trying to create an environment where everybody feels bought in. Nobody feels like anyone's better than somebody else. They're all owners with either a capital O or lowercase o, and we're all pulling in the same direction.
Absolutely. I think another way to gain credibility too is by doing things like this to upgrade your skills and your knowledge and finding ways to continue to improve. And so participating in a course or whatever like this just shows that you're invested in becoming better. And I think that also can go in and help you increase your credibility. So lots of ways, and all very much so in your control and fairly simple. So the other characteristic we described, we said credibility and integrity. Integrity is the glue that holds all relationships together, including the relationship between the leader and the led. Is trust, and trust is based on integrity. So same question. What does integrity mean to you?
One's character.
Say that one, sorry, one more time.
One's character. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Doing the right thing when no one's watching.
Yeah, I love that definition of it. Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, I think another component of integrity is consistency. Okay, being consistently, I don't want to say the phrase predictable, but just being consistent in terms of our approach, our style, our willingness to be honest, our willingness to help other team members. People, it's interesting, we're hierarchical beings. We look to our leaders to actually kind of tell us what the temperature is in the organization. So we look to leaders for, you know, vision, direction, pace, and even for emotional well-being. And so that consistency is really a key to be able to help people feel safe and secure within a team. Volatile leaders are really tough leaders to work with. because you never know where they are. And as a team, then you're always trying to check in. Consistent leaders create a base that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bob just kind of gave some insights into this, but why do you think integrity is important, or why is it important to you?
Well, like Bob was saying, the consistency of that. So like this new hire, and even though she knows Dr. Babcock, they haven't worked together for 20 years, but I could confidently tell her Dr. Babcock will do the right thing every time. Every time. Not just most of the time, usually she will do the right thing every time. And so that consistency just builds trust like no other, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it creates an environment where instead of jumping to, jumping to conclude or assumptions of I'm being wronged in a situation, whatever it may be, it puts you in the opposite side. If I trust and I believe Bob has integrity, then whatever he's doing, even if I don't understand it, like there must be a good reason behind it. Even though in the moment maybe I feel insecure or I don't feel confident in that decision, whatever it may be, the fact that I can trust him and he's integrous and he's been consistent, all those things allows me to be like, okay, maybe I don't understand, right? Instead of jumping to the conclusion of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's doing these things and getting frustrated. It just questions it makes you question motives and stuff like that. So it creates a very safe environment when you have a leader that is full of integrity. Any other thoughts? Hey, how do we gain it? I think probably some similar answers, but what do you guys think? What do y'all think?
Leading by example in a positive way, consistent.
Yeah. I think one of the best ways, and it's kind of ironic, but is when we do fail, or we do fail to keep a commitment, or we don't, we own that. And we admit when we are wrong. That I think shows just as much integrity as doing the thing the first time. But when you own when you make mistakes and you totally admit that and apologize and step in and just say I'm sorry, it's amazing how much that can build it back. Now, if it's consistent and you're always doing that, that's a different story. But if it's occasionally and you made a mistake, then and you own that mistake, that's different.
And Brighton, along that line, just thinking out loud, one other thing that I'd suggest, not only owning mistakes, but I think also soliciting feedback. Okay, being willing to listen and ask those who work with you, what can I do more of, less of, and the same to help you succeed? And really being open to suggestions and then creating plans around that so that they can see that you're keeping the commitment that you made, as you talked about, different ways you may be better.
Yeah, it's a great conversation point of what can I do more of, what can I do less of, and what can I keep doing or do the same. And then you do it. You actually do
Exactly.
it. That's a big part of
Yeah.
it, right?
Yep. Don't blow it off.
Great. Any last comments, questions, concerns, anything around credibility or integrity and building trust?
If I can just throw one more thing in there, I think being really competent in your job helps you gain credibility, because
Yeah.
the team knows that they can trust the work that you do. And you know, it's character and competence which actually create trust. And then also, you know, we talked about this earlier, being willing to clarify. If things are unclear to you as a leader, by golly, they're going to be unclear to your team. But being willing to step back and actually have those conversations. Tammy and I just had a conversation an hour ago with a new team member who's virtual as a biller. And she's really talented at what she does, but she's made a few mistakes in the past month and a half just by not being able to go up to somebody's desk and say, hey, how are things going? And spent about an hour with her just trying to clarify, you know, who owns what, what's going well, what's not working, what can we do different?
Right. So, you don't build businesses, you build people, and they will build the business. We are in a people first business 100% every day, all day, 24/7, 365. We are in a people business, right? That happens to provide dental services. But we are in a people business. And the backbone of a great practice is on the relationships and the people that we're developing and the culture that we create. Bob and I get to be, you know, we're fortunate enough that we get to talk to a lot of different practices, practice owners, team members. We get to interview a lot of different people. And what I can say very, very confidently is the biggest difference between the great practices and the not so great practices isn't that one of them is exceptionally better at dentistry or anything. It's that they've created a really fantastic team and culture. Now, the baseline is that they still do good dentistry, but they still, the biggest difference is they've created a fantastic team and have a strong leader who's charging away and helping everybody become better people. Those are the type of environments that don't have high turnover. Those are the type of environments that provide great service, get good reviews, all those things. And we focus on building the people. So, Bob, share about your little red wagon.
Okay. So some of you may have heard this story before, but as a boy, I used to carry a red wagon around my neighborhood. My dad was an amazing gardener, and in the Arizona heat, he could still grow tomatoes that were huge and beautiful and luscious. And little Bobby Spiel would take his bag and his tomatoes around and knock on people's doors and sell them for 25 cents a pound, which at the time I thought was a good deal. But I think back, you know, 60 years ago, that was probably a lot. But people bought them, and they bought them to the point where they would knock on my door now and say, does your dad have more tomatoes to sell? So this little red wagon metaphor then became one of, you know, what's in your wagon? Okay, I was selling tomatoes. We're serving people. And in dentistry, there's a dynamic that takes place, which is really ironic. Often what ends up, instead of being tomatoes in the wagon, it's the team. Okay. And then the doctor or the leadership team is what's dragging this red wagon around the entire neighborhood. And it's exhausting to do so. And the team's just sitting in there like, okay, we're really happy. You know, you keep doing this. When the goal that we've got instead is to change the dynamic and actually have all the team around the red wagon and the leadership team is steering. It creates so much more joy for everybody. It leads to so much better performance as an organization, as a group, as a team. You can succeed so much better as a practice if we can create that type of culture where the team's all pushing and the leaders are steering. And one of the greatest ways that we can achieve this, like I said, from Stephen Covey, you can buy a person's back, but you can't buy their heart. They give it to you. It's the process of jumping out of that wagon And getting around and pushing is literally the process of giving someone your heart and buying into where you're going and why you're going there and how you're going to get there. So it starts with making and keeping commitments. Like we've said, creating a feedback loop. We are huge believers, everybody, in what we call one-on-one meetings. Hello, Dr. Zek. How are you?
Hey, Bob.
Great to see you, man.
Good to see you. Just
Thank you.
delivering eggs.
That's the most important thing you did all day.
What's that?
It's the most important thing you
It
did all
is.
day.
It is. It's the only thing I'm
Great.
Thank you.
Well, yep. And we are huge believers in what we call scheduling one-on-one meetings and actually having a chance to sit down with your team members individually to establish tighter relationships, to clarify expectations, to get to know each other on a personal basis, and to get to know their hopes and their dreams. And all of that can seem daunting to someone who's already a very, very busy leader within a dental practice. Doesn't have to take a lot of time. One of the biggest things is to just get it scheduled. But most businesses realize or think, well, we've got to at least do performance reviews every year. And the team members are thinking we want performance reviews because we want to know what our raise is going to be. We like to separate all of that and say, listen, one-on-ones are actually a chance to coach. It's a chance to be able to actually share with somebody how you feel they're doing, what's good, where they could improve, and then ask as a leader, what can I do else to help you succeed? Because ultimately, the type of organization that we're trying to really foster within all of our clients is the type of organization where nobody works for the doctor. We all work with the doctor. Nobody works for the office manager. We all work with the office manager. And that one change of wording changes everything.
So Bob, what do the one-on-ones look like in reality? How do these ladies start to actually implement those?
Yeah, great question, Brighton. Here's what we like to recommend is that you do them every 4 months. So you do at least 3 a year. One can be a performance review. They don't have to be long. It can be 15 or 20 minutes. That's it. And you actually have a form that you use and fill out ahead of time so that you have a chance to know what you want to thank them for and what are some areas of improvement that you'd like to discuss. And then you just have a discussion with them, a chance to sit down and get real and talk. And if we get it scheduled, it actually gets done. Okay. If we don't get it scheduled, it never gets done. But if we get it scheduled, and then in that meeting, we schedule the next one. And that's part of this whole trend of credibility and trust, keeping commitments. So we can send out our one-on-one form to all of you later on today. You can look at it. You can decide if you want to keep it, use it, or throw it away. But the best thing I'd recommend is think about how you could get together with your team members and start to coach them and start to give them feedback and solicit feedback.
Yeah. And these meetings are a little bit more of those formal conversations. We have an agenda, we have things that we actually want to talk about and check progress on and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean you can't provide coaching outside of them, right? Like the day-to-day of still helping them improve in their job. You don't have to wait for those one-on-one meetings, right? We can still provide feedback and stuff like that throughout the thing, throughout the months. So how do you all feel about that? Do any of you currently do one-on-one meetings, and how do you feel about implementing them?
No, we don't now, but I think it would be helpful. Yeah.
How helpful would it be if the doctors did this with you?
Dr. Navarro does with me, and
Yeah.
he does with Jen
Every
too.
now and then. me
Not
too,
as,
but-
not as often as we probably should.
Mhm.
Should be doing it more often.
Say our office has never had that practice done by anyone.
Yeah.
So definitely see the value in it.
I
Yeah.
think it's more of a wait till a problem arises and then have a meeting to discuss it.
I think that's
Exactly,
very,
Jen. That's
I think that's
that's
very
exactly what it is.
honest.
Yeah.
We're backpedaling.
Well, I was just thinking about this whole time you were talking about it and thinking, because like we just had this big assistant meeting that apparently a lot of things were going on that I was not aware of, and
Hmm.
how people felt about me that I was not aware of, whereas like if we could have open meetings, you know, every few months to get that out, it would have not
Yeah.
caused all of that, you know.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's
Yep.
Staying on top of it, and not letting things get too stirred up,
Mhm.
basically.
Mhm.
Just checking in. And
Yeah.
that's
That's
what Dr. Navarro does with me, and
yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to do that more with the staff. Yeah.
Yeah.
and not even
Yep.
just checking in on them, but asking them, okay, now what about me as a leader? What could I do more to help you type of
Yeah.
thing?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That can be some of the most
Yeah.
valuable part of that conversation. So I think Bob said, yeah, minimally I would do it quarterly or every 3 months. I'm a fan of doing them more often. I think the more often you do them, and you can make them short, 15 to 20 minutes. You know, you set aside one day a month and do that. I like doing them monthly, but a quarterly would be fantastic too. You know, any sort of jump to that is super helpful. So
And I've had practices rebel at the thought of trying to do this every 3 months. So that's where I kind of settled on 4 months. But here's the reality, gang. 6 months is too long.
Mm.
Okay. So 3 months is ideal. Actually, Brighton, to your point, monthly is ideal, but it's really hard to pull off. 3 months
really
is
hard.
better. 4 months is okay. 6 months, there's too much time. Okay, too many things evolve and elapse, and it isn't really a coaching conversation if it's every 6 months.
Yeah.
And so if this is something that you feel like, you know what, I'd really like to add this to my leadership toolkit. Probably the most important thing that you can explain though up front is to the team why you're doing this. Okay, and this is something new, you respect that fact, but it's really to help create even more frequent open dialogue for yourself and your team members. Okay.
Yeah.
And at first they may feel a little awkward. Okay, the first time you say, what else can I do to help you succeed? There may be silence, but we'd encourage you not to let that awkwardness get to you, and just keep doing it. The more they see, again, this credibility thing, the more they see you doing this, the more they'll get the message, oh, this is sincere.
Yeah. And I found too what's helpful, especially when you're building this new habit of one-on-ones, is to come prepared with some ideas of things you already have in mind that you could do to help them better, and be willing to admit those, you know, saying like I could do better at checking in with you personally every week or whatever it is, like, and have those kind of prepared beforehand. And then to Bob's exact point, when you do decide to do this, communicating these are for you and for me to be able to help you more, like that is the whole goal, is for us to get to work to better learn to work together better. So yeah, so one of our action items from this call will be to invite you, if you want to implement it, but we'd encourage you to implement it, so we're going to invite you to schedule those first one-on-ones. That's going to be one of the action items from today, is to schedule those first one-on-ones, and whether that's next week, next month, or in 90 days, whatever.
Hopefully not next year.
Yeah. Let's get it on the calendar. And that's going to be the scariest part for you. As soon as you do it, it's on the calendar. It's now you have to keep that commitment, and we can always coach you through when it gets closer how to actually have those conversations and stuff. Okay.
I
Great.
shared
would
this with
say,
a,
sorry,
I'm
I
sorry, go
know
ahead.
it's more like one-on-one, but how do you feel, or what would you recommend as far as like groups? So, I mean, there's 4 of us assistants in the back, so to sit and have the time to pull everybody individually is kind of tough. I think it's easier to get everybody together as a group for like 20-30 minutes. But I don't know how.
So Jen, I would suggest both,
Mhm.
honestly. Okay.
Okay.
The chance for the team to get together like you did last week and huddle up and actually talk through things is really great.
Mhm.
But also the chance individually to talk to each one of your team members is equally as great.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
they serve different purposes. For
Yeah.
this purpose in which we're talking about, I would really try to do the one-on-ones. And if that's like you schedule and think about it, it's not that hard. 20 minutes, you know, one time a week, and you just rotate who it's with. If you know, hey, we're gonna meet, I'm gonna do my one-on-ones every Tuesday morning from 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and I just rotate who I'm meeting with each week. It seems like a lot if we're gonna be pulling people out, but I think you could find, 20 minutes in the schedule instead of thinking I got to meet with all of them back to back to back. That might be more challenging.
Yeah.
'Cause then you have to set aside an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever, and that's much harder. But if you were to kind of block it, it might be easier to put into the schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Bob, I'm going to move us along so that we can get
Yeah,
through the
please do.
remainder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So here's what we'd like to have you do right now. Get out a piece of paper. Okay. Just a plain old blank 8.5 11 by piece of paper and grab a pen.
Mhm.
And once you have that, here's what we'd like to have you do is you're going to build what's called a trust map. It sounds really complicated. It's not at all. It's actually very simple. It simply works like this. Put you in the very center of the piece of paper. Kind of like you're the sun and everybody, all the relationships you have are the planets. You're right in the center. Once you've done that, think about the significant relationships that you have. Team, doctor, etc., even family. You map this based upon the level of trust that you feel exists in the relationship. The closer, the stronger that level of trust, the closer that dot is to you. The weaker the level of trust is, the further away that dot is. There's no wrong answers. This is all based upon gut feel. But once you do this mapping, there's a follow-up question we want to just ask you. But take about 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes and go through this. You can use initials, to identify the different people, but just map out. You're in the center. The stronger the trust, the closer they are to you. The weaker the trust, relatively speaking, the further out they are. Questions about this before we get going? Does it make sense? Okay, everybody give it a try. We'll set our clocks for 3.5 minutes. Okay, how about 30 more seconds? All right, we're going to have you pause right here. If you'd like to keep going with this later on, you can. But as you look at this map, there may be some surprises on here. There may be some real key insights. But the most important thing that you can do with this now is look at where a dot is. And if it's not where you want that dot to be, to ask yourself this question: what can I do to change this? What can I do to change this? So I'd love to give you a couple of minutes to just circle a couple of those that are out where you're not, where you wish it was different, where you wish it was closer, and then try to work through this question: what could I do to change this, to affect this, to increase our level of trust? Can you do that? Just identify a couple of these, maybe 3 total, and work through that question.
I will.
Okay, 1 more minute. All right, we'll call time. We're just about out of time. You've probably never looked at trust in this way. I know the first time I did this exercise about 35 years ago, it was really revelatory and insightful. Okay. If you haven't got all your team members in here, we'd sure encourage you to do so. And again, work through the question, am I comfortable where this is? If I'm not, what do I need to be able to do to change this? Okay. And then that alone really kind of helps set the stage for your interaction with them and your one-on-ones. Okay. I'm just curious to close. Any insights, no names, no nothing other than just insights. Did you have anything pop off the page that surprised you?
I did. I have two people in particular that I feel like the trust level is very high, but and they're not family and they're not coworkers, but they're people that really know me well. They get me. I've been very vulnerable with them in a way because I don't have a lot of fear with them. And that I fear I just have a trust level that they're going to accept me and they're going to hear me, but they also have a strong similar mindset about some strong values in my life, you know. So that's just that was eye-opening for me.
Yeah, that thought of being vulnerable, I think is a really great insight, Lori, of those that we trust we're vulnerable with. And I think another way to earn trust from others is by being vulnerable with them. That's like admitting mistakes or stuff like that. So
Right.
Great.
Yep.
Anybody else want to
Thanks.
share as we wrap up? Okay. Hopefully you're walking away feeling hopeful, not discouraged right now. I know we're not all in the same room, but there seems to be, based on body language and stuff like that, seems to be a little bit of a heavier feeling right now in this virtual room. And I would encourage you that in order for something to get better, we have to acknowledge where we are now. And that's okay. That's not good or bad. It's just where it is now. And so now we have the opportunity we've identified those points of maybe pain, maybe frustration, and we can now start to chip away at those and start to focus on them. So our 2 action items for you over the next month was to schedule your first one-on-ones. And then secondly is to focus on those people specifically. I mean, we'd highly encourage anybody in your life, but specifically the team members that you don't trust. Start to spend time with them in building that trust back up. Create a plan, do what you need to do in order to really start to build that trust up. Or if that trust bridge is completely gone and it's non-existent, maybe it's a different kind of conversation that you need to have with the doctor and say, there's no trust here, and I'm not sure if there will ever be trust again, and maybe we need to move on from them. Because if there's someone in your team that there is zero trust and it's unlikely to ever get back, they may not be the right person for the team. Okay.
Correct.
So focus on those people that are farthest out, especially on your team, and then schedule those first one-on-ones. Will you all do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Our commitment to you is to send you, and Bob, this is on you, to send out that one-on-one meeting agenda template.
Yep. You got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. We'll look forward to meeting with you next month. You can put it on the calendar for, I think it's the 3rd Wednesday. It's the 21st, same time. So
Correct.
August 21st from 12 Mountain Time to 2 Mountain Time is when we have the next one blocked off. So go ahead, put that on the schedule, block it off, make sure it's blocked off. But
And we'll send reminders. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we'll do better.
Yes.
So
yeah, we'll be better at that.
As always, if you have any more questions, or as you're going through this exercise and you're feeling a little stumped or frustrated or whatever, please reach out. we are totally available to you and we want to help support you. So thanks for spending some time with us. We hope you have a great rest of your July, and we'll see you next month.
Take care.
Okay, thanks everybody.
everyone.
Bye, thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.